Thank you for watching, and you'll see it again because you're watching it right now. Chaos ensues. The Canadian men's national team roster is out for November. We have Lane from On the Rise. He is here. We are talking all things Canadian soccer right now, and it's a lot of Canadian soccer news. The U17s won the game. Like we're no longer San Marino of the U17 level. Like, how does that make you feel? Do you smile now? Is there a smile on your face?
Of course, it's a good change.
That was the wildest stat to me. Just eight appearances, 24 matches, not a win until Uganda. I'm sorry, Uganda. You guys played a great first half. You really did. But they did. They just hit the post and then had a couple good saves by a Canadian keeper. But Canada wins. But we're not here to talk about the U17s. There's plenty of videos of me talking U17s. Make sure you watch that. But we're here to talk about this men's national team Canada roster that dropped today. There's a lot of names that were around this. There were a few names that were off. We found out later that those were for injuries. But let's look at the roster here and just have some immediate reactions to what's there. So the roster is Ali Ahmed, Theo Bair, Zorhan Bassong, Tejan Buchanan, Mathieu Choignard, Derek Cornelius, Maxime Crépeau, Jonathan David, Promise David, Stephen Eustachio, Owen Goodman, Junior Hoylett, Alfie Jones, Ishmael Kone, Kyle Laren, Richie Larea, Kamal Miller, Jaden Nelson, Jonathan Osorio, Taniel O'Shea, Nathan Saliba, Nico Segur, Dane St. Clair, Joel Waterman. 24 players. What stands out to you first?
It's got to be Owen Goodman, right? Like
Right in the middle. Right in the middle.
I think they
You
knew what
see
they were doing when they put that in there, right? Right in eye view when you open it up, Owen Goodman. Like he's of course next to Junior Hoylett, like brand new next to standing vet.
There's so many conversations with this roster, but yes, good. I didn't see until you mentioned it because I was like, okay, cool. Owen, play, and then you're like, did you not see them? Like, is this a? And then the second I saw that, I swear every one of the group chats is on fire right now, and I'm like, this is not a drill. He's here. This feels like we're treating him as if he's like the second coming of something, but he's a name that's been around the program for years, right? We go back to 2022 when he plays a few friendlies for the U20s, but isn't able to get his passport in time for the CONCACAF tournament, which we then find out is a whole larger thing. So there is a conversation with Goodman, which is we still aren't sure what this looks like in terms of national teams. Again, he needs to get cap tied in competitive matches and the likes, but having him on the roster to me is exciting because it's a name that we wish that was on this roster for literally 4 years. 4 years, if not counting. And so it's encouraging to see it. It also brings more question in terms of what the goalkeeper number 3 is. But Goodman, I'll ask the crazy question, which is do you think him getting here, him getting seen, would he be able to unseat, assuming that, goalkeeper of the year, Dane St. Clair in the MLS is your number 1? Could he push a player like Max Crépeau for the number 2 goalkeeper spot in the next bit leading up to the World Cup?
I don't know if I'd say leading up to the World Cup. I think Jesse Marsh just shown too much loyalty to Maxime Crépeau. Like, if anything was going to happen there, it would be James Pantemis over Crépeau, just how much better he's been to win over that Portland role. But Owen Goodman has so much potential and so much talent, right? He could easily, I think, take out Maxime Crépeau if Owen Goodman starts consistently for Huddersfield, because we've seen how good he is in the lower divisions of English football, but this season he hasn't been able to lock down that starting role for Huddersfield Town, unfortunately. So it'd be a bit harder to unstick that role from Maxime Crépeau when he's not starting on a regular basis, Owen Goodman. But at the same time, Maxime Crépeau hasn't started either for Portland Timbers. So it's a difficult question, but I really think at this point it's kind of that Crépeau, Dane St. Clair battle for 1 and 2 and seeing who can get that number 1 role. Because as good Dane St. Clair has been this year, he also has made some blundering mistakes that you get from him too. So it's really a toss-up between that 1-2. But I don't think Owen Goodman will break up that 1-2 battle till after the World Cup.
it's if you want to look at it very cynically, you can look at it and say it's kind of odd that the battles between the goalkeeper of the year and currently the backup for the Portland Timbers,
Yeah.
perhaps. Which I know some for some fans, I know I've seen the comments online again. A very positive, uplifting space, the Twitter sphere
Oh
these
yeah.
days. So encouraging. But like you understand the arguments where it's okay, and then you see the names. Why hasn't a Pantomus been given an opportunity? Why not give at this point? Why not give a Tom McGill a shot? Right? Let's Jaden Hibbert, who came in, get an opportunity again. They were able to see the camp, and this is going to be the reality of this year up until right before the World Cup. Because we only have friendlies for Canada, players will be cycling through. Maybe not as many as people thought would, or maybe not enough as people were hoping for. But you're going to have players cycling through to take a look at them. And I always like to say is there's a world beyond 2026, right? After the summer of 2026, we're right back to competitive matchups. And so having seen different players, it doesn't hurt. And even I'll even say like an even more uncomfortable thing, there's no confirmed Jesse Marsh is going to be with the team past the World Cup. And so you have to be building your pool. You have to be having good players within there. So I don't mind them taking a look at players like a Goodman. Alfie Jones is one that came in. We're a little bit surprised that there's no Luke de Fougerel or Jacob Schaffelberg. Marsh said that there were some injuries as to why they weren't in, but Alfie Jones walking in, where do you kind of rank him in terms of center back depth for Canada? Because for me, I'm thinking top three, top four. I think four after Luke. Luke's had more time within the system, but are you going to pass up the experience? When you look at Alfie Jones and what he brings to this Canadian men's national team, do you think that's something that's first center back off the bench? You think that should be something that is maybe pairing with a Bombito or a Cornelius, depending on who's healthy? Where do you see him fitting in with this current squad here?
I think when everyone's fully fit within that chart, I think he's number 3 based on the level he's played at for so long. He's won titles within England, albeit League One with Hull City. But his experience, his age, his level of play, I don't think we can undermine that compared to other players we have within this depth chart. And nothing against Kamal Miller and Joel Waterman and the level they've brought to this national team, but he is miles ahead of them, in my opinion. And I think he is easily within that core 4 of top 4 center backs we have now. And we now have 4 really strong, really reliable center backs within that depth chart. And I really think he is locked on as a third, kind of fourth center back in the same rank that you have them. Luke de Fougerel right now, I think, is just learning his trade and unfortunately is in one of the weaker sides in Belgium. So it's kind of hard to put him above Alfie Jones, even though he's had reps and time within this Canadian national team and tactics under Jesse Marsh. But when we're looking just based off club experience and everything, I think we got to slot him in as the third choice right now. But I could see Luke de Fougerel hopping him in a year or two.
That is certainly a player to watch. I'm wondering also looking at the players that we know are going to be playing because we'll have the other conversation afterwards. Like I wonder with no Schaffelberg, I think there's two interesting battles in this camp. There's who is the first winger off the bench, in which case is it Junior Hoylett or is it a Jaden Nelson? Will Jaden Nelson finally get some run in that outside winger spot in a high profile matchup? But then also, I think there's a low key battle of the veterans happening between Osorio and Junior Hoylett. Who gets to be the seasoned veteran at the camp? When you're looking at Osorio, you're looking versus Hoylett. When we saw them in Romania and Wales, my first thought was, I think Hoylett is probably your best simulator to what Jonathan David is currently trying to play as in this system. So I think he's a lot more valuable, say, than a player, another 9, or another midfielder. But when you're looking at that battle specifically, Hoylett versus Osorio, who do you give the edge to kind of moving forward? And is it a battle in your eyes, basically?
For me, I don't even see it as a true battle because I think Hoylett is, I wouldn't say miles ahead, but I think he's quite far ahead of Jonathan Osorio right now. Of
Mm,
course, I think Osorio, it's just because of positionally. Like Hoylett can play at what 4 different positions within this side. He can back
Mm,
Dejan Buchanan. He can back up Ali Ahmed. He can back up Jonathan David. He can play at the number 10 role. Like he can play wherever you want, really across those multitude of roles. While Jonathan Osorio is kind of pigeonholed into that box to box midfielder role, and he has so many players to work ahead of. Stefan Estakio, Ismail Kone, Nathan Saliba, Nico
mhm,
Sigor you can throw into there. And this is a position that, what, maybe 2 years ago we could have said is the weakest position within this national team in the heart of the midfield. And now we're just abundance of riches within that midfield now, and we have a struggle of time to who to start from there. So for me, I think Junior Hoylett is the better of the two vets. I think he offers more between the two vets, but at the same time, they're both still having a lot to give to this national team, both experience wise, both quality on the pitch. As far down that depth chart as Jonathan Osorio is, I think he is still a gifted footballer with a lot to give to this national team in the right matchup. And I think off the bench, I think him and Hoylett can bring a great role by calming a game down, controlling the ball, slowing a game down, just tempo wise when you're trying to win a football match. I'd give it to Junior Hoylett, but I still think it's a very good battle.
I do as well. I'm curious as well. Also, good to see Theo Bear back into the mix as well. Do you look at him as a player that can push into those top four? Yeah, I smirked when I said that because then I realized what I was about to suggest. Theo Bear, what does he have to do to say unseed the fourth rated in our eyes? I have to be clear there. In our eyes, the fourth rated striker here, because to me, I think he is the fourth best striker here. I would argue that there's, as crazy as some people may see, I'd say there's another striker who's finally looking good in a championship, who might have deserved another look, but I understand why they're not looking at him right now. But Bear versus the field, what does he have to do to get into this squad? Again, I'm just working under the assumption that's a 23 member squad for the World Cup. If it's 26, it changes numbers, but working off 23, what do you think he has to do to get more of a chance to be one of those top four strikers for Canada in 2026?
In my mind, he's already top four, like you said. I think it's more so of what someone in the squad other than Bear has to continue to not do. I think it's down to what Kyle Larin continues to do at club level and what he continues to do at the national team level. And nothing against Kyle Larin. He's been a great player for this national team in some clubs he's been at. But I don't think he's even top 5 strikers for this national team pool anymore. Like Canada is filled with strikers and quality up front. And I think with the form Theo Bear's been on and how good he's been playing in Switzerland for Lausanne-Sport and how good he's done in the Conference League, he should be locked on top 4 within this team. And he gives something that this national team doesn't have. He is a absolute unit with how big he is, how strong he is, and when we're whipping in balls from set pieces, and we look miles better from set pieces, when we're having long throws from Alistair Johnston or Tajon Buchanan, I don't know why you wouldn't want a 6'4" built like a absolute brick house trying to win you corners or knock on balls late in the game or even to start in some situations. Like Theo Bear seems like he should be locked on for me as a top 4. And I think the only way he gets into this team as he continues this form and Kyle Larin continues to not start for Feyenoord. And I think it'll be very telling come March. I think it'll almost be a given how that striking battle is going to go because I'm very surprised Jesse Marsh even went back to 5 strikers because last window he went with 4
Mm-hmm.
and it took me by surprise that he decided to go with 5. So it almost is like he's scared to drop Kyle Larin in a way, or he's too loyal to him. Because before he only wanted to go with 4, and now with Theo Baird back on form, he couldn't not take him. But at the same time, maybe he felt like he couldn't not drop Kyle Larin. It's a very weird spot to be in.
It is. It'll be interesting to watch because he's a player who like it's funny if you transport yourself 4 years ago. We were saying the same thing about like Lucas Cavallini, where it's just like, should he be dropped? I don't know, but look at his goal scoring comp for Canada. And now 4 years ago, 4 years later, we're like, should Kyle Aaron be dropped? I don't know. I just love his goal scoring comp for Canada. Now, granted, in 2022, I was like, Kyle Aaron needs to be in the he needs to be in the Lucas Cavallini role by 2026. And he technically is. But we'll kind of see how that works through. Also, my 2026 World Cup roster in 2022 had Daniel Jebison as the 9, and I haven't. That train hasn't been abandoned
Over.
yet.
Not
Okay,
over.
it's not over. I don't think he. I think he might make the roster just because that's something I think we should keep an eye on. Just because of the speed factor, I think he is a player who makes the roster, especially if it's 26. I think he's a prime candidate for striker 5.
He's looked very good recently too, as well.
He has. He really has. Game winning goal against Sheffield in the
Sheffield,
championship
yeah.
a
I was
couple of weeks
surprised he
ago.
didn't make this roster, but
And that's what I thought he would bring him, but I don't mind them looking at Bear and just letting him cook a little bit longer.
yeah.
Again, because after November, it's just okay, everybody. We'll see you in March. And March is literally the last chance anyone has to crack into this. There are names here. There's another name who's coming to train. It's so funny to me that Marcelo is. It really does feel like 2021 to me. I was talking to people like 4 years ago. It was right before the Gold Cup, and we're like, we put Marcelo and Daniel Jebison on the finalist roster. And we both called, and they both said maybe not now. And all the news that's come out about him possibly coming in, the story is right now he's coming as a training player for the likes. Most Mexican fans I've read are just like, okay, what has he done? To me, it reads like a player who is trying to find some spark to jumpstart his run, whether that is this year, whether that's post playing his contract, whether that's trying to find different avenues to get his career going in another direction. But him coming in as a training player, I mean, he's 22. The Everyone is 22. So he's a young kid. I have no issues with it whatsoever because there's a world, like we said, past 2026. And you want to have as many good players in your pool. That's not to say that we're abandoning players who are developing. There are still young players. I'm surprised a Justin Smith hasn't been chosen for this squad, but then makes me think possibly is it a style issue versus not? And the one thing I've seen a lot is Marcelo has a profile that we don't necessarily have. We don't necessarily have a cam type role. I've spoken a lot, and I don't really. You're the guest here, Lane. You're the guest. We're here to hear your
Oh,
thoughts.
give me the controversial one, eh?
Oh, I don't mind being controversial. I don't like. I don't. I
Oh, I
think
don't
it's
need to, but
fine, right? Like, and like to me, this is growing up watching a lot of African football where it's just like a player at 19 you try to call and they say no, and then they come back at 25. And I'm like, yeah, this it happens. Are you happy about it? No. Are there reasons for it? Yes. But hey, he's weighing his options. There's nothing wrong with the player for doing that. How do you feel about Marcelo coming over and just the floor is yours. I put you in frame.
oh, I appreciate it. Fantastic. I
I
don't
can
see.
leave if you want me to. I could
Oh
just
yeah,
make it just you.
I just don't see the harm in this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see the fuss in calling up a 22-year-old who still has loads of potential. I know
Mm,
supporters are going to immediately jump to his stats and say he's not playing on a weekly basis for Tigres and he hasn't been a star player for them. But this is still a young kid who's still very talented. And at the same time, he wasn't born in Mexico and decided to choose them, and a family member happened to be Canadian and says, I'm going to go represent them. Like, this is a guy who's born in Ontario. His father pressured him to choose Mexico at a very young age, and he was still learning the ropes of being a footballer and how stressful and difficult it is when he was still in
mm.
the Arsenal Youth Academy, when he was talked about at a very, very high level. there was always going to be pressure on the kid to choose Mexico from his father, and you can't really blame him. Like I wouldn't either. How many kids get pressured to make a rash decision from their parents in the world of sports at that age? Like it's always going to happen, right? And in most sports, you don't get your parents fighting over what nation you need to represent in your sport. Like how wild could you imagine a hockey player choosing between America and Canada? Like that just doesn't happen.
Oh,
Like
that's an easy choice though, but that's not
like
even a hard choice.
of course it's not, but like you get the gist. But it's just something that is so wild to comprehend. But I respect that he's finally choosing to choose Canada. Like I don't see any harm in this. I think it's better for the Canadian national team in the long run. I think it's better for Jesse Marsh, for Marcelo Flores. I agree with you. I feel like it's a player trying to almost kickstart his career, finally getting something to go his way, because he
Hmm.
hasn't really had that moment in his career that's really boosted him in the right direction. And I'm not upset at all if this is what he's using to kickstart his career, because if he files that one-time switch, he can't go back to Mexico. He's
Yeah.
fully representing Canada for the rest of his footballing career. So what's there to be upset about if he decides to take Canada, has a great performance for us in the future, and there goes his footballing career. He's a Canadian international, and he's then a 22-year-old playing along the likes of Tajon Buchanan, Jonathan David, Jamie Knight LaBelle, Owen Goodman. Like the future looks pretty bright, doesn't it? Like, and this is a
Hmm.
player who could be behind Ali Ahmed in the depth chart? That's a question. Okay, there we go. Let's throw this back to you for Marcelo Flores. How we run this stream as usual. Where would you see him in the depth chart? I said in my video, I think everyone healthy, like Liam Miller healthy, Jacob Schaffelberg, Jaden Nelson, Junior Hoylett, Ali Ahmed. Where is he for you in that left mid depth chart? Because I have him fully healthy. I put him third. Put you on the
Okay.
spot.
No, that's why this is what we
Yeah,
do.
of
This is
course.
why
It's
we're here.
fun.
I think for me, if you look at again, it and then let me first by caveating saying Alfonso Davies is a left back. Okay,
Oh, okay, you're throwing that one in there. Okay, I
he's
didn't
a
even
left
consider him at left
back.
mid.
Okay, let's defense. Okay, I love you, Font. I know you have it all, but left back. I think you have Ahmed. I think Ahmed is one. Miller is clearly two.
Okay, we're on the same page so far.
And then it's a converse. If you're going to say based off of potential and what you hope the player could be, yeah, I don't mind putting Flores as your number three. But that on the left side, yeah, I have no issues doing that based off of what they've done on the pitch so far. So like, where is his time going to be? Again, if he came to the team right now, based off of potential, I need firstly, I'm a show me and then we'll talk. So for me, I'm like, give me a full season somewhere where you're getting minutes and let me see what you do. Right. Give me a full season in that and then we'll talk. Because I think if you see a full season of him not like he needs minutes is what the issue is for me. So third, I don't mind him being third in the depth chart. Because the one thing at left mid is that injuries are commonplace with this side. That's partially the style. That's partially just football happens. And so he's closer. There's a reason why every time we talked, I would always be like, yeah, and like Luka Koleosha wouldn't be a terrible idea to bring back in because you're always looking and saying, can you be better there? Now, could he be better than everyone there? That is I'm never going to say he is certainly the highest potential player there, but we know where he came from. And for him, hey, the journeys of a professional player. As a youth child, he was. I mean, at youth tournaments, he was riding high. But then being a professional isn't the same, and that's always the struggle when you're looking at youth players going to professional leagues. You're no longer just trying to be the best player at your age group. You're trying to be the best player, period, out of a country's pool. And he had to learn how to be a professional in those different aspects. And every young player will go through that, right? In the same breath, you look at a player like him, like look at like Theo Corbianu's journey. as a professional. Now, as a Wolves fan, I'll tell you, it's the most frustrating thing because Wolves, developing players, we do great at that. Honestly, like we do so well. It's frustrating. But then by the time he's finally fitting into a place, it's what, 3 years later? He's in the MLS, and you're finally starting to see him put it together because he's getting consistent minutes and he's playing. So for Marcelo, I want to see him play, right? Regardless of, I know there's the cloud with a lot of people is he publicly said no. And yes, there's a lot of history and baggage with that. I get that. As a Ghanaian, I'd say, yeah. And Iñaki Williams once said, I feel more Spanish than Ghanaian. And look at him starting for Ghana. Okay. Some people have not forgiven him. And I'm just like, hey, I don't know. For me, I just want to see the player play. But I think right now, if you said based off of potential, yeah, top three left mid. No, not a question. Not a question at all. I don't. It's just the whole thing about this. I'm like, okay, cool. And then everyone is just like yelling. I'm like, why are we upset?
It's dividing the fan base, man. That's all it's doing.
He's like. I remember at one point where we're like, yeah, Daniel Jefferson's never coming. He came, and then people were like, yay! And then some people were like they're young players. Let them play. The development is never going to be linear, but they need minutes. Minutes is always going to be the key thing, and that's where my concern is. Or if Marcel needs more minutes, find them. If that means he has to move out of Liga Mexi, then do that. Get minutes. Maybe that finally opens the eyes of whoever he's going for. And again, we're talking about this as if he's going to change. I'm just looking at the player overall saying, hey, for the amount of talent and the potential and the hype that the player has, there's got to be more of a player than what he's been able to show there. And so go out and play. Go find somewhere where you can play, and then we'll see from there whether that's Mexico calling him back again or whether that's Canada saying, hey, as a left winger, you can fit for us, or maybe, we'll put you in the middle and let you create. Please, please, Canada, play a cam, please. Can we do that? Can we play a 3-man midfield, please? Is it too much to ask, Lane? Is it too much to ask?
It truly is.
I just want a 4-2-3-1, just one time, just like. Anyways, enough of me just starting to have a breakdown. I've watched too much U17s in the last 2 days. My brain is fried. But they have this window. They have Venezuela and Ecuador. I'll ask this to you from a point standpoint, but then also just from a who needs a big window standpoint. What would be a successful window for you? Ecuador in Toronto, then Venezuela in Florida. What is successful in terms of points? 3 wins, 1 a draw, and then 0 for a loss.
Well, this is a tough one, right? Because it's not technically points, but I would say I would like 4 points. Like that is the goal, of course. I mean, the goal is to win both games, but I think the goal is to pick up 2 good results that, if we're talking tournament style football, you're gaining something in the right direction. You're gaining something that could help you progress to getting out of a group. And ideally, I think we have to win at home. It is the harder matchup of the two. Ecuador is the harder side at Venezuela and Ecuador has a very, very strong squad. Some very top footballers across the world of football. And it'll be a major test for Canada in Toronto at home, BMO Field. But I think they have to win. You got to continue to build that momentum at home. We don't have many games ever at home on home soil in Toronto. So I really think that winning at home is major for this team, just to be able to continue to build that confidence ahead of the World Cup, because we really don't know how many games we're going to still have at home before the World Cup. That we don't know what we're getting in March. We don't know what we're getting before the World Cup as well. So like you have to go at home, you have to win, and at least have a very strong performance against one of the better sides within South America and prove yourself. If you go out and draw Ecuador, but it's in a good style football and it's a close knitted match, then fair play. That's still fine. And then you go out and beat Venezuela. I think Venezuela will be a interesting test in Florida. It's going to be a more Venezuelan crowd, of course, which Canada is used to going away from home. But at the same time, Venezuela is not as strong as Ecuador. So you could make the argument that they have to beat Venezuela and get a result against Ecuador of a draw, maybe. But I'd like to see 4 points at the bare minimum. But I could see us probably beating Venezuela and losing to Ecuador in a more realistic point of view, or if I'm using my less so red tinted glasses.
I think you want to every window you want it to be at least four, right? A draw and a win is ideal. Um, this will be more resembling. My thing is, will they learn the lessons from Australia? Right, and I'm not expecting Venezuela and or Ecuador to fully Australia the game and just be like, we're gonna sit here. You see this 35 to 45 range. That's the line. Come and break us down. I don't expect that. However, can they learn when they're playing a team that just wants to be defensive? Can they learn from that? In the same way, can they be more clinical than, say, they were against Colombia? For how uneventful that game was, they both gave up great opportunities and they had a couple good moments. In some games, it just comes down to moments, right? And that's why sometimes when I look at Canada, when they play sides and they're creating a lot of opportunities, I'm encouraged, but at the same time, you gotta convert. At the end of the day, it's conversion. It's having one more goal than the other side before the game whistle is blown. So in a perfect world, like I said, I think a 4 point window would be ideal. Probably a win versus Venezuela. In a perfect world, a win versus Venezuela and a draw versus Ecuador would be ideal. Realistically, I'm looking for I would love a win and then tell me how they look against Ecuador. Do they look the part? Are they just snake bitten? That would be unfortunate, but that would be something I'd be looking for in terms of what I would want from them in that game specifically. Now, for specific players, who needs a big window in this November camp here? Who really has to shine, in your opinion?
Uh, there's a few players I think need to have big windows. I think there's, of course, a few locks like that we expect to start. I think it's
Mm,
huge for one of those two strikers next to Jonathan David. You could argue
mm,
all three of the strikers need to have major windows for different reasons. I think Jonathan David needs a big window in terms of finding some level of form this year, being able to get
mm,
his confidence back. He might still have his confidence, but as a striker, you need to get that goal off the board and really kickstart your season. This could be it for Jonathan David. Getting a
mm,
game winner against Venezuela or getting a goal to tie the game at BMO could really kickstart Jonathan David's season this year at Juve. But at the same time, you got Promise and Tani battling it out for that number two role. I think whoever partners Jonathan or whoever comes on later in a game needs to have a great start or a great cameo and to continue to convince Jesse Marsh that it's their role and they want to grab it with both hands because most players within Canadian rosters do that very well. When they get the opportunity, they take it. No matter club level, national team level, they take their opportunities. But I think coming closer to the World Cup, only one window away in March, you have to really stand up strong in this November window, especially against two strong outfits. And we don't know how Venezuela or Ecuador will really play against Canada because if they're smart, they'd sit back and try to soak up pressure and hit us in the
mm,
counter. But who knows what they're really going to do because that isn't really the true quote unquote South American DNA. But at the same time, I still think on the back line, Derek Cornelius is safe. Richie Larea, I think, is a sub. I don't even want to get talking about him as a starter at left back. But I think Nico Sigor needs to, if he has a major window this window,
mm,
there becomes a massive conversation around him being our starting right back at the World Cup. I think there's already that conversation building and building. But if he has a big performance against an Ecuador and then another strong one against Venezuela because he's locked on to start both these games, it's really can he start ahead of Alistair Johnston? Should he? Which
mm,
I don't think is out of the realms of possibilities. I think Alistair Johnston gives you a different look to Nico Sigor, But Seager going forward for Canada has been a lot better than Alistair Johnston has going forward for Canada, which is surprising because Johnston going forward for Celtic has been incredible, especially last season with his delivery, his goal scoring ability. But Seager has really taken that to a new level at right back. And
Hmm.
wouldn't shock me if 2 great games here, we're in a real discussion about Nico Seager starting at right back.
It very well could be, and I think it's a fair thing to bring up. I think, yeah, echoing some of what you've said there, Richie's had a good run with it, but
We're going
to
back to
me,
this.
listen, I love Richie, I do, but Alfonso Davies is the left back. Therefore, play him at left back. Um, and ultimately, I don't with the wrong Richie style of play will always be a concern for me because the way that he plays with the wrong ref, that's 2 quick yellows. And yes, in friendlies, he's got early yellows and he's had to figure it out for the rest of the game. In friendlies, they're not trying to throw someone out in a friendly, but don't give the job is don't give the ref the opportunity to. And that's where I'm concerned about it. And I think Davies fits a lot better. But all that being said, players who need a big window for me, I'm gonna go away from where you suggested because I think there's some very fascinating conversations. What do they do in midfield? Saliba and Kone with Eustachio, whichever one or however they want to pair. Who takes that second midfielder role and really runs with it? Right? Because Kone has been playing well for Swasulo, and I like that. I've liked how he's looked in the Italian league so far, but Saliba is also pushing. So you can have a real conversation. Oh, by the way, Mathieu Chouanier, doing his thing in LA. So the midfield is a very fascinating. Who actually emerges and is able to stamp it? I assume it'll be Ishmael Kone, but Saliba is coming, and he is one for the future, and the future is now. That's the one thing I'm curious about. The second is, can we get a goal, please? Just like I like this is. I just want goals, please. I would really like that. Um, and at this point, all of our strikers need goals at the national team level. Joe David needs it for everything. Tanny, by his scoring rate, this should be about the time he hits the back of the net. We're going like every 5 to 6, he'll give you a goal. So this feels about right. Promise David is been looking dangerous for Union Saint Gilloise and Theo Bear. If Theo Bear is the man who scores this weekend for the whole set, oh, the conversations that
Left
will
out
be.
Kyle Larin, by the way, but I thought I'd
Who?
let
I'm sorry,
yeah,
who? No, and Kyle Aaron as well. Like, can he stamp out and remind everyone why he's second all time in goal scoring for Canada? Uh, we need a 9. We need someone to score, please. We really need a goal. I will take I will take a headed set piece that goes off Derek Cornelius's head, bounces off of Nico Seeger's left leg, and dribbles into the net. I need a goal. I need a goal for them. But to me, they need to be able to score. And scoring against even the South American teams, not to say that it's just a South American side, but scoring against top international competition is going to be important for their confidence because they have to do it. The Australia game was frustrating for them because they felt they should have scored so many, but they didn't. And so they need to score to build that confidence moving forward in all things. Uh, any last thoughts before we wrap this up here?
my voice is here so far, but that should be good for now. I think there's a lot of Canadian soccer we got going on. So
This is true. This is true. Oh, by the way, if Game's not knowing, the U20 for men's draws came out for qualification.
of
I
course you
think
got
it
this
is,
in here.
dude. I was just like, this is happening too. New screen. Canada's in the group with Nicaragua, Aruba, Martinique, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. That will be a fun one. I think that gets going next year, and so
I think you need it to be next year with how much you're watching football. So
if
I
you
think it'd
get
be
like,
unhealthy if it was happening very soon for you.
I don't know what to do with my time if I'm not watching like 4 games of football at the same time and be like, who's yelling? Who's speaking of that? The U17s. I said this in my live stream yesterday. It's growing on me. This format is growing on me. Like, just being able to see teams make their debut again. Uganda scores their first ever
That
World
especially.
Cup goal against Canada, of course.
The atmosphere of that game was incredible.
We have people behind,
On
people
the
on this
next stadium over.
watching the game.
That
I
was
was like, ooh,
absolutely ridiculous.
and I loved it. And I absolutely loved it. Because, like, you saw it at first with the women's U17s, and you're like, okay, this could be fun. It's kind of weird, though. It's very meta. You're watching a game, and you can see the other game, but when you're watching the other game, you can see the game that you're watching, and you're like, what? But it's fascinating. It's great. It's growing on me. We'll see. Maybe, hey, 3 points might get you to the round of 32. Things I never thought I'd have to say at a World Cup. The round of 32. But hey, I mean, look at the women's U17. The Netherlands won their first game, lost the next two, and then won two games are in the finals. 3 points will go a long way, and then you just gotta survive and advance. So maybe this is what happens with it, but hey, youth football, senior football, all the football, it's happening. We're gonna have to get together with we need to get together with everyone right before the African playoff gets going because that'll
Wild.
be a fun experience. But yes, we will end it off here. On the Rise is his YouTube channel. Make sure you follow for all things Canadian men's national team soccer. We are going to be covering here on the Africans, the U17s, and we'll chop this up and have conversations about what Canada should do with their men's national team. But until we see each other again, Lane, it's been a pleasure to have you. And we'll end ourselves right about here.